A pleasant morning to each and everyone. I am Jofel Ernesto and a native of Cugon Sigma Capiz. I last attended my senior high school at Vicente Andaya Senior National High School.
Perhaps some of the major achievements I had received are as follows.
I was affiliated as the founder member at the Boyligana Youth Movement. It is a non-profit youth organization here in the province of Capiz that is committed for the environment, youth empowerment, and the culture preservation. My philosophy in life is keep thriving and eventually the stars will align in your favor. And the goals that I wanted to pursue in my post-college career goals is to take the board exam and hopefully will become successfully stable in all aspects with the aim of helping my family and other people by giving impact to someone's life. I was born and raised in a complete family who has the best, supportive, and hardworking parents. Our topic for today is all about the assessment and the affective domain. So let us first know what are the expected learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, the students are expected to, number 1, know the factors, competencies affecting the affective domain of a learner. Number 2, learn the different assessment tools in assessing the affective domain of the learners. And number 3, internalize the importance of considering the affective domain of a learner through a write-ups. Let us unlock some words that is associated with our topic. So the first one is affective. So that is relating to moods, feelings, and attitudes. The second one, intrinsic, originating or due to causes by the body, organ, or part. So number 3, extrinsic, originating outside a part and acting upon the part as a whole. The next one is assessment tools. There are techniques used to measure a student's academic abilities, fluency, and skills in a specific subject or to measure one's progress toward academic proficiency in a specific subject area. As you can remember, the affective domain is one of the 3 domains in Bloom's taxonomy, with the other 2 being the cognitive and the psychomotor. The affective domain as defined by Cratwell, Bloom, and Masha 1973. It includes the manner in which we deal with things emotionally such as feelings, values, appreciation, enthusiasms, motivations, and attitudes. Affective learning is demonstrated by behaviors indicating attitudes of awareness, interest, attention, concern, and responsibility, ability to listen and respond in interactions with others, and ability to demonstrate those attitudinal characteristics or values which are appropriate to the test situation in the field of study. The affective domain describes learning objectives that emphasize a feeling tone, an emotion, or a degree of acceptance or rejection. The quantitative terms used in affective domain or the taxonomy in the affective domain includes receiving, responding, valuing, organization, and characterization. The first one is receiving. It is being aware of or sensitive to the existence of certain ideas, material, or phenomena, and being willing to tolerate them, to differentiate, to accept, to listen, to respond to. The second one is responding. It is committed in some small measure to the ideas, materials, or phenomena involved by actively responding to them. For example, to comply with, to follow, to comment, to volunteer, to spend leisure time in, and to acclaim. The third one is valuing. It is willing to be perceived by others as attaching importance to certain ideas, materials, or phenomena. For example, to increase measured proficiency, to relinquish, to subsidize, to support, and to debate. Number 4, organization. It is relating the value to those already held and bring it into a harmonious and internally consistent philosophy. For instance, to discuss, to theorize, to formulate, to balance, and to examine. Number 5 is characterization. By value or value set is to act consistently in accordance with the values he or she has internalized. For example, to resist, to manage, and to resolve. It is admittedly a far more difficult domain to objectively analyze and assess since affective objectives vary from simple attention to selective phenomena to complex but internally consistent qualities of character and conscience. Notice that it is far more difficult to state an objective in the affective domain because they often refer to the feelings and internal processes of the mind and body that cannot be tested and measured using traditional methods. As teachers, we are also interested in students' attitudes towards learning topics such as science, math, and etc. We want to find teaching methods that encourage students and draw them in. So affective topics in educational literature includes attitudes, motivation, communication styles, learning styles, use of technology in the classroom, and the non-verbal communications. As teachers, we need to be careful about our actions that may negatively impact on students' attitudes, which go straight into the affective domain. For instance, facial expression that reveal sarcasm or harsh, body movements that betray distrust and dislike should also be avoided. The effective learning competencies instructional objectives are specific, measurable, observable student behaviors. So objectives are the foundation upon which you can build lessons and assessments that you can prove to meet your overall course or lesson goals. So think of objectives as tools you use to make sure you reach your goals. They are the arrows you shoot towards your target. So it ensures that learning is focused clearly enough that both students and teachers know what is going on, and so learning can be objectively measured. Attitudes are defined as a mental predisposition to act that is expressed by evaluating a particular entity with some degree of favor and disfavor. Attitudes are also attached to mental categories. Mental orientations towards concepts are generally referred to as values. The effective components of attitudes includes cognitions, affect, behavioral intentions, and evaluation. Cognitions are our belief, theories, expectancies, cause and effect belief, and perceptions relative to the focal object. This concept is not the same as feelings, but just a statement of belief and expectations which vary from one individual context to the next. The second one is affect. It refers to the feelings with respect to the focal object, such as fear, liking, or anger. So for instance, the color blue evokes different feelings for different individuals. Some like the color blue but the others not. Some associate the color blue with loneliness, while others associate it with calm and peace. The third one is behavioral intentions. It is our goals and aspiration and our expected responses to the attitude's object. And number 4, evaluation. It is the central component of attitude. Evaluation consists of the imputations of some degree of goodness and badness to an attitude toward an object. So why there is a need to study attitudes? So attitudes influence the way person acts and think in the social communities we belong. They can function as frameworks and references for forming conclusions and interpreting or acting for or against an individual or a concept of an idea. So merely it influences behavior. People will behave in ways consistent with their attitudes. Self-efficacy is an impression that one is capable of performing in a manner or attaining goals. It is a belief belief that one has the capabilities to execute the courses of actions required to manage prospective situations. It is important to understand the distinction between self-esteem and self-efficacy. Self-esteem relates to a person's sense of self-worth, whereas self-efficacy relates to a person's sense of perception of their ability to reach a goal. And now let us talk about motivation, the theories and motivation. Motivation is a reason or set of reasons for engaging in a particular behavior. The reasons includes basic needs, object, goal, state of being, ideal that is desirable. Motivation also refers to the initiation, direction, intensity, and persistence of human behavior. Why motivate students? So it can direct behavior toward particular goals and lead to increased effort and energy, and increased initiation of and persistence in activities. It enhances cognitive processing. It determines what consequences are reinforcing, and it leads to improved performance. There are two kinds of motivation, the intrinsic and the extrinsic motivation. The intrinsic motivation brings pleasure or make people feel what they are learning is morally significant. Extrinsic motivation, on the other hand, comes when a student compelled to do something because of factors that is external to him. So let us talk about the development of assessment tools or the standard assessment tools. Assessment tools in the affective domain are those which are used to assess attitudes, interest, motivation, and self-efficacy. So these include number 1, self-report. It is the most commonly used. It is essentially requires an individual to provide an account of his attitude or feelings toward a concept or idea or people. So an example of self-reports is a tally sheet. It is a device often used by teachers to record the frequency of students' behaviors, activities, or remarks. Number 2 is rating scales. It refers to a set of categories designed to elicit information about a quantitative attribute in social science. The common examples are the Likert scale and the 1 to 10 scales, for which a person selects the number which is considered to reflect the perceived quality of the product. Number 3 is the semantic differential or the SD scales. It tries to assess an individual's reaction to specific words, ideas, or concepts in terms of ratings on bipolar scales defined with contrasting adjectives at each end. The SD has been used as a measure in a wide variety of projects. It is reported exploratory studies in which the SD was used to assess attitude. Number 4 is the Thorstone scale. He developed an attitude continuum to determine the position of favorability on the issue. Thorstone is considered as the father of attitude measurement and addressed the issue of how favorable an individual is with regard to a given issue. Number 5, the Likert scales. This requires an individual to tick on a box to report whether they are strongly agree, undecided, disagree, or strongly disagree in response to a large number of items concerning attitude, object, or stimulus. The Likert developed the method of summated rating or the Likert scale in 1932. So for example, the statement is, I do not like to solve algebra. Number 6 is the checklist. It is the most common and perhaps the easiest instrument in the affective domain. It consists of simple items that the students or teacher marks as absent or present. So steps in the construction of checklist. So first is to enumerate all the attributes and characteristics you wish to observe. Second one, arrange these attributes as a shopping list of characteristics. And number 3, ask the students to mark those attributes which are present and leave a blank those which are not. As a sort of reflection towards the end of this lesson, assessing the affective domain of your children will help you understand their behavior. Since their behavior is often affected by their attitude, you will know how to deal with them. So this will also help you plan what activities you should make in order for them to develop their values. So the assessment of affective domain also guides you on what should be your learning objectives. Motivation is also important so that the pupils or the children will pay attention on the class. It will encourage learning things, ideas, and developing skills. They will exert effort to achieve something and be a competent learner. So as an educator, you should initiate and sustain motivation on them. You should also let your students evaluate themselves through likes and dislikes, so this will be your guide on what techniques or methods of teaching you are going to use to enable them to learn your lessons even if they dislike it. So their evaluation might change based on your effectiveness in teaching. So even their behavior can be affected and changed into a positive one. And that concludes the assessment in the affective domain. So I hope that you learned something today. Thank you for listening.